All right, welcome to another episode of the Winner's Circle. I'm your host Jay, and today we're going to explore insights and strategies in business and leadership. Today we have a very special guest with us. Joining me today is Dr. Carla Fowler. She's the founder of THAXA, and she's also the managing director of THAXA, an executive coaching firm that leverages the best ideas from performance science to help leaders around the globe. She's also an active member of Social Venture Partners, Rotary, and many others. So today we're going to delve into the topic from medicine to entrepreneurship. This is going to be a very interesting episode because, for people that really want to switch careers, this is, a lot of people have gotten to a stage whereby they don't know how to go about it. They're stuck in a career and they don't know how to take the next step and the leap of faith to taking that big step. So, but today we're going to see someone who have done this, who is a great doctor. She was great in the medical field, and now she's also great in the entrepreneurship and coaching, executive coaching field. So, Dr. How are you doing today?
Hi, Jay. Thanks so much. I am doing really well, and I'm excited to talk about this topic. How do you make a pivot? What does that look like?
Honestly, it's going to be a great show, and it was great to have you the last time and have you today again. And thank you for your time. So but today we're just gonna take that step, and we're gonna learn from you today. So what initially drew you to pursue a career in medicine?
So I some of it was very practical. Like in my family growing up, I think I realized that I wanted to study something where it was very clear, like what the job would be. But I think the other thing was that I really liked math and science, and I was much more drawn to those fields than like English or history. And I think it was because I liked solving problems, and I also liked thinking that the world was solvable, that like if you encountered a challenge, that there was a solution, a way to work through it. And in science and math, they teach you how to work through a problem. And so I definitely gravitated towards that. I started as an engineer in my undergraduate education, and that was both seemed like a good place. If you like math and science, engineering has a lot of those things. But I realized actually that I wanted to do something that felt closer to working with people and felt closer to like the kinds of problems that people face. Obviously, in retrospect, engineering does a lot of things that helps people, but I think I gravitated more towards medicine because I wanted to feel like I was like directly helping them. And so that seemed like a good place to start. I think the last thing is that at that point, no one in my family was an entrepreneur. My dad was a consulting actuary, so he was in a big corporation, and he had gone to graduate school. My mom also went to graduate school. So I think what I knew was like, if you can get training, if there is a school program to go to learn something, they will show you the way. So even if you don't know the way, they will like set you up with the steps you need to take to be successful. And I liked this idea of not having to figure it out all on my own, which of course is very ironic now, having come out into entrepreneurship, which is very different. But those were the thoughts, the original thoughts, Jay.
That was a great thought. That was a great journey, towards the medical, the engineering. So what was the turning point? The moment where you just get that spark that, you know what, I need to just switch to entrepreneurship. How did the moment feel like?
It was probably, in actuality, a lot of moments, like small moments, right? Like almost you don't notice it, but it wasn't just a single pivot point. But I completed my program for training. So I got my MD. I also got a PhD. So that whole process took me 9 years. And the benefit was it was actually a program with a scholarship. So because I did the PhD and the MD, one of the benefits was I got all of my school was paid for. And so that was a great benefit. And I was something that I really, I knew I didn't want to have a lot of debt graduating. So I finished that. And then after that, you match into a residency program. And so I was studying general surgery and I was at Stanford and I had a commitment for 5 years to do their full training program. And that was my first choice. So everything was going very well. And I got there. And one of the really interesting things is while I was doing the medical school and the PhD, I actually had a ton of autonomy. So as long as I could make my time work for myself, and I was good at managing my time creatively to make sure I could still do everything I wanted to do. So I was studying, but I also had some time to be with my friends. I also lived a whole other dream during my medical school training, which was I always wanted to be like a high-level athlete. And one of the things I pursued during that time was I played ultimate frisbee at the club level and was on a women's team and then later a co-ed team that won multiple national championships. And so on the side, I was like playing sports, training for sports, and really enjoying that. But when I got into residency training, suddenly there was a lot less autonomy and the job really changed to an 80-hour a week or a 100-hour a week commitment. And you sort of really needed to be around, and it was difficult to plan your time in a way that I had been really successful planning my time before. Because you don't know when a patient is going to show up or what a patient is going to need. And you generally have a patient list of anywhere from 10 to 40 people. And you sort of just need to stay until the work is done. But it's hard to know exactly when is that going to be, how long will the surgery take. And so I really found that my world became much more narrow. There just wasn't a lot of time outside of work. And it was fascinating. It was totally invigorating. But I think I was suddenly realizing and looking ahead at like the attending surgeons in front of me and trying to really understand what would life look like. If this is the career path that you really want to do, what does that look like? And that was the first moment when I really did not have the control of my time the way I had previously. So that was one big factor. I think the other big factor was I looked at what was the range of skills that I was using to be successful in this surgery residency program versus what were all the skills I had to give. And I had this realization, for example, that one of the things I really loved and that I was really good at was working with people. So talking with them, empathizing with them, helping them be comfortable with a decision, identifying what their worries or concerns would be, talking with their family, right? Like just really that humanistic element of medicine. And also, I think I was very good at being strategic about time, but suddenly that was not necessarily an asset that I could use in the same way within this work setting. Sometimes you could be good at a thing, but that doesn't mean that it's actually using your full potential in all the ways that it could. And I think for me, as I started to watch what that career path would look like, I had to come to the really tough decision that it was not using all of my potential. And I was good at it and had the potential to be very good at it, but it wasn't going to use all of the parts of me. And thus, I didn't think I was going to be fully maximized, in what my impact could be. And so I remember there was one moment where an attending asked me what my plan was. And I said, "What do you mean? My plan is to become a transplant surgeon." And he said, "No, I mean, what is your plan to move out of the field of medicine?" And he had said he had thought very hard about moving out of medicine to get more autonomy, to be able to operate when and where he wanted to. And that was the first person who broached the idea to me. And I was like, oh, my observations are correct. Like, I'm not crazy that I'm seeing these things. And so by about May of my first year, I let the program know that I would finish the year, but I wasn't going to return. And I had made the decision that I needed to pursue something different and more independent, because I knew that surgery was not a fit for what I needed. And I was still sort of defining what that was going to look like, but I knew that was not the right choice. And so to continue to stay wasn't going to help me move forwards with my life, with my career. So that was sort of the pivot point.
All right. That's powerful too. So now looking back, is there anything, when you look back during that transition, is there anything you'd have done differently during your career transitioning?
It's a good question, Jay. Sometimes people ask me if I regret having done all of the training in medicine and science. I absolutely regret none of it. And a big piece of that is because I believe we can learn in all sorts of settings. So even though I was studying medicine or science, I learned all of these really important skills that I use as an entrepreneur. So for example, when you're a scientist, you have to, it is very similar to entrepreneurship. You're asking the same kinds of questions. You're trying to figure out, how can I learn about this thing and move forwards with it? And in entrepreneurship, you have to test things in the same way. You have to go see what the market wants. You have a hypothesis about what the market might buy or find valuable, and then you go test it, and then you get your data back. So there's actually a lot of similarities in the kinds of creative thinking that's required. And being in medicine taught me to be very disciplined. It taught me to a lot about working with people around decision making, as you and I have discussed previously, and even just how to work with people when they're facing all sorts of different kinds of challenges, and be supportive of them, but also let them be autonomous in their thinking and decision making. So I learned so many things in addition to just the fact of being in those high performance arenas. It is very challenging to get into medical school and to complete it. It is challenging to get a PhD. And so being in those environments, having to compete, you just learn so much about yourself, and it requires you to perform at a really high level. And I have always been interested in high performance. And I think that is that seed, that core of watching other people, observing them, seeing what habits they use, and then trying it myself, right? Being the guinea pig, so to speak, to say what helps me perform at my highest level. And so going through those situations, and then going through the process of building a business when I was starting at zero, those high performance arenas really have pulled out my best potential. And so I have no regrets about going through that as a process. I think one thing I do more of now than I did before is I do spend more time thinking and trying to do computational experiments about, hey, if I want to go do X, let's say I want to start public speaking as a coach, can I, even though I'm not doing it yet, let's just say, can I imagine or get some more data about what that might be like? So for all, I have no regrets about any of my training. I suspect there was probably some more forethought I could have put in to say, what is being a surgeon actually going to be like? Can you be honest with yourself about whether or not that would work for you? Would you like it? And so I do think I practice more now, trying to think ahead and be honest with myself about, as I make decisions for my business, for my practice, some of those things. So that might be a thing that, and I do recommend this, of course, to people I work with. Even as we were talking on a previous episode, I recommend thinking ahead as you're making decisions, trying to envision what might work for you, what might not, and have some process around that. So that's a thing I think I could have done more of. And yet I don't regret where it took me. So that's my thought on that.
All right. All right. Great. So you made a point, when you were making a statement. You said you were learning through people, like you are seeing the way they're making their steps, and you learn from it. So it comes with this. Were there any maybe mentors, maybe role models who inspired your journey from medicine to entrepreneurship?
Mm. There were definitely mentors along the way that taught me key components, but I'm not sure there was ever someone who, like, my whole journey is pretty unique. There are very few people who leave medicine, and so there wasn't a mentor for the big arc of my journey, but along the way, people who really influenced me was actually a middle school teacher that I had, and she taught a very unique outdoor fitness class. She had us, it wasn't a normal PE class. It was that she had us running off campus. So we did endurance running. She had us biking. So every day we were either biking or we were running. And then she had us do all these really crazy physical challenges. Like one weekend, she had us walk for 24 hours straight, like around Lake Washington, which is near Seattle. And it's 55 miles. So she had, 11 and 12-year-olds walking 55 miles in 24 hours. We took a break every 4 or 5 miles, but we didn't sleep. And that's just one example, but had a number of these challenges that were very difficult. And just that ability to like grit it out. And when it gets tough, knowing in yourself that you have the capability to keep going was really important. And I will tell you, when I left medicine and I was starting at zero and I was trying to reform a career that I had already invested in, for 11 years or so, that was a really hard moment. And those are those moments when you have to like just look inside yourself and say, this is hard, but I have what it takes and I will keep going. And I think I really got that from her, from that. So she was really important. And I also think my PhD mentor was really important. He was very hands off, so I got a lot of autonomy, and that prepared me very well, actually, for the unstructured nature of entrepreneurship. You got to figure it out. There isn't a boss or someone who tells you what to do. There are great resources out there and advice, great books you can read, all of that. But he was the one who really pushed me to think about what are the most important questions to ask that have valuable answers. Not all questions have valuable answers, but in entrepreneurship, you're looking to ask those right questions that help you figure out what's valuable to your clientele, to your market. How might you do something really unique and different? And he was the person who first pushed me to think that way and also modeled that in how he thought about science. And notably, he was a very good scientist, but he also had a very successful lab, which requires being a business person, because actually a lab is a business. You need to make sure you don't run out of money. You need to always be applying for the next grant and be successful at that. So to be a good scientist, actually, you also need to be a good business person. And I thought he modeled both of those things. So those are some of the important mentors along the way who, again, gave me pieces of the puzzle. And then how I assembled them was kind of unique. Again, I don't think I know anyone who left medicine to do what I am doing now. But yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Mentorship is very key. No matter the field you learn. It could maybe not in your field. It could be like something similar to what you're doing, so you can, garner one or two things. So for people who are trying to switch careers, or maybe because I have quite a number of people that I coach and talk to, and they tell me I'm a nurse, I'm stuck. I don't know how easy it is for me to switch into entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship, there's no for some people there's no stability when they're starting first, because you don't know if it's going to go right or wrong, right? So especially if you don't have a right coaching or somebody who's coaching you right. So most people are like, I don't know how I'm going to get started, so they're really stuck in what they don't like. They wake up in the morning, I'm like, ah, I hate this job, but they just have to go because
Yeah.
they have no other option,
Hmm.
which is sad. All right. That's why, when I saw that you moved from medicine to entrepreneurship, I'm like, wow, a lot of people have been dreaming to have you on the show, to listen to get one or two advice to take that bold step. Like you're like the key to somebody's problem right now. Because right now, from them watching this program, they're like, you know what? I need to take this step. If Dr. Carla can do this with all our achievement in the medical field, then I think I should be able to do it. I need to take that leap of faith, which is a great thing. So which leads me to one thing, and I want to ask you. I know you have achieved a lot. Your bio is a strong bio in the medical field and also in the entrepreneurship and other field. What accomplishment would you say you are most proud of in each field?
I think the thing I am most proud of is actually being willing to start over and to build what I have built for myself. And the reason is not it's not that I'm not proud of all the other things that I accomplished, but I think it was the most risky thing for me. The thing where I really didn't play it, I didn't play it safe. And I think earlier in life, I definitely was like, oh, I don't want to take risks. I want like a sure path, good training program, all of this. For me, I think it was like the biggest of faith. And also, I'll be honest, it took some time to really rebuild. And so I think the resilience or the grit that it took to stick with it, to not give up on it. And I'm really proud of myself for that because I both learned a lot that now I can use that in so many other areas as I grow my business, as I do new and different things with it. But it took a lot of trust in myself and willingness to say, even though this is not a typical path and it's not, I think a lot of people were confused when I made the change, that I just had a lot of belief in it, and to see your belief in yourself manifest, and then also to really enjoy what you've built. So not just to have it feel successful from the outside, but to feel like what I'm doing now, I am so well suited for, and it uses all the different parts of my skill set. It was like I could create a job for me versus, taking the job that someone is offering. And the privilege of getting to work with such amazing people and help them along their journeys is just tremendously satisfying and meaningful to me. And so, but I think why I'm so proud is it took so much faith in myself, and that I think I accomplished many things in my life with less faith in myself, and so this thing just feels really really important, very meaningful for me.
All right. Thank you so much. So as we round up this episode, I have two questions before we round up finally. So I know that you still have the medical knowledge in you. All right. So how do you maintain a balance between the analytical mindset of a surgeon and the innovative, spirit required for entrepreneurs? How do you balance them?
Mm. That, that is interesting. I think, well, one of the things I think I actually always had some of the innovative spirit of an entrepreneur. Like that wasn't, it was always there. And I think that might have been part of the reason why, even as I was going to medical school or doing my PhD, that I was still interested in so many other things. I was always interested in what was possible. I was always kind of independent. And I was always looking for a good way to do things. And it might not be the traditional way people would do things, but if I thought it would work, then I would do it. And so in some ways, I think that creative piece of me has always been there. And I just sort of kept it contained as I was going through, the systems, the achievement systems of medical school and all of that. So in some ways, in being an entrepreneur, I get to let that out. And as I work with clients, I think I have a lot of room to both be analytical, but also to be creative and to co-create with them. And so I guess what I would say is they seem to find a pretty natural balance for me. And I'm not sure I can explain it, but they sort of balance back and forth. And I try to get clarity when there are things that need to be done on what needs to be done. And then, yeah, the surgeon part of me knows to like how to hammer out that to-do list, right? How to execute. Then I try to have moments during my day where I can just think in a little more of a free form way and not always be doing. Sometimes that's when I exercise. I just kind of let my brain float along and think about whatever it wants to think about. So I think part of how I balance it is just giving myself some opportunities to be clear about what mode I'm operating in. Am I in like surgeon mode or am I in kind of creative, innovative mode? And so giving some space for both.
Right. Thank you so much. So you switch between the two, and you have it in your mind anyway, so you can always balance it. Yeah. So last but not the least, the final question for today, today is fast spent. So looking back, what advice would you be able to give to your younger self, at the start of a career in medicine? What advice would you give to yourself at the start of a career in medicine? And the follow-up question on that is, how would that particular advice you're going to give to yourself, how would it differ for someone starting out in entrepreneurship today?
So the first question, let's just assume, because I'm actually very pleased that I went through all of my medical training. So the advice wouldn't be to not do it. But what I would say is everything, I would encourage my younger self to keep observing, and all the things that didn't strike me as quite right about, what was a good fit for me or what wasn't a good fit for me, just to validate those observations. Like when I wasn't quite feeling like I fit into the medical system, that wasn't something wrong with me. That was actually my own brain telling me that maybe there were some parts of medicine that were somewhat limiting for me, that I needed to be in a space where I could have more autonomy to build the systems and create in the ways I wanted to, not to be too constrained within a system. So I think I would just encourage myself to say, hey, those times when you have a thought about something that isn't the thought everyone else is having, that's a valid thought. And it's telling you something. It's not that you're wrong about this, or you need to change yourself. And then, advice for someone starting out in entrepreneurship, I think one of the most important things is to get going and start learning things. And that doesn't mean you have to quit your job. In fact, I would say there's a lot of learning you can do and not cost yourself financial runway before you stop your current position. This idea of getting started, asking yourself, well, what's my idea? Do I have an idea? Could I go talk to some people who run a business like that or do that kind of thing? Could I read some books on business and selling? Like what could I learn that might help me put some shape to this? Are there podcasts I could listen to? So I think there's a lot of things you can do to get started. It's also a good way to judge how interested are you in actually building something really autonomously. If you're excited to do that learning and you can self-drive it, then that's probably a sign that you're going to have that momentum, for that business. If you're actually like, nah, I don't really feel like learning about it, maybe actually what you need is a different job, but you don't want to be an entrepreneur. And that is a great choice and a fine choice also. That would be my advice is get started. Don't worry about doing it perfectly, but start interacting with people and getting some information for yourself.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fowler. We really appreciate your time today. We always have the last words, which is and also recommending 5 resources we can read to understand more of the journey, or probably to build our knowledge on a particular case study. So I know the last time you gave us 5 books. Does those 5 books apply because of wanting of time? Does this still apply to this topic? Because I know that one is for different topic. If you have 5 books you can recommend, good. And if not, then you can just give us your last words for
Excellent.
today.
Well, I love those books. I think they're
Yeah,
very
for somebody
relevant.
getting started.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think they're relevant. I'll add one more, and that
please go
one
ahead.
is Transitions by last name Bridges is the author. And I think it was a really big transition to go from medicine into entrepreneurship. And he talks about lots of different kinds of life transitions, but I think a lot of what he had to say was relevant. So I'll recommend that. And then, I think in final words to the audience, our careers can have many chapters to them. And sometimes we know we want to be an entrepreneur when we start, sometimes you don't, but it can be a very engaging transition and important part of a career. So even though there can be a lot of uncertainty with it as well, I have found that going into the space has taught me so much about myself, and I've learned so much that again, there's a way to go about it and set it up well for yourself, and that might look different than what I did, but I have found it to be something that just really taught me so much. So I guess that's my final word.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Carla. And thank you to all the winners. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Winner's Circle podcast. I also want to say thank you again to Dr. Carla Fowler for, sharing her personal experiences, her journey, her unique path from medicine to entrepreneurship. We want to say thank you for coming over again, and hopefully in the future, we'd love to have you on the show again. So we want to say thank you so much. So, and for the listeners, I want you to make sure you subscribe for more inspiring conversation, and so you can learn tips for success. Until next time, keep striving for greatness and know that nothing can stop you because you're a winner. Have a nice day, guys.
This is the same building of Keiretsu